topic today is renewable energy rent payments and cash flows. And what we mean by that is we're not talking about the dirt. We're not talking about the real estate that's underlying a wind turbine or a solar farm. We're talking about the lease itself, what is generating the cash flow for the landowner. What most folks do not realize, mostly on the landowner side, which is why you all can serve as a resource of information and knowledge for these folks, is that those landowners, they can essentially sell that lease. They can sell the cash flow. They do not have to sell a single square foot of property. They can sell that cash flow. And to the previous comment there in the chat, that cash flow can be a 1031 exchange. So what that means for a lot of the folks in the room who, or in this webinar, most of you folks are real estate agents, land professionals. I'd rather call you all as land professionals instead of real estate agents. What that means for you is that's several deals in one, and you're not selling any dirt. You're selling the cash flow that is already existing or could potentially be coming to a parcel for a landowner, putting that into the Landgate marketplace. Offers are made to you directly. You receive those offers taken to your client, and they can sell that cash flow. What you as a land professional can do is that those proceeds that they get from selling that cash flow, they can 1031 exchange that, and you, with your help, you can put them into more farmland or more ranch land or a beach house in Corpus Christi, whatever fits that person's those individuals' financial needs. That's where you step in and say, well, here's what I can do to help you. I'm your land professional. What types of, let me help you sell this cash flow. We're going to 1031 exchange that. And let me help you get into a property that's right for you. Do you want to keep making cash flow? If that's the case, great. Put them in a DST, put them in a commercial property, whatever it is, or even better, utilizing the Landgate tool, you go out and you find very, very high value potential land for solar or wind or battery storage or electrical vehicle charging, whatever it is. You find vacant land that's in a very high value area, and you get them parked into that. And then you help them buy that property with a 1031 exchange. You then help them with that property, and you move that into you help them get a lease. That's what Landgate allows you to do as a land professional. We don't take, and I probably should have started the webinar out with this. Jensen, I always forget to start out with this. We don't touch your commission. We don't take commissions. We are not a broker. We are not an agent. We are not a land professional. We are a marketplace and data analytics platform. We provide the platform so that you can transact on all of these different deals, and we provide the data analytics so that you understand all of the things that potentially could come from an annuity perspective on open land. Okay, so we're going to go through a couple topics here, frequently asked questions, things like that, of what exactly are we talking about? What are the renewable energy rents, cash flows, royalties, things like that? And how does it work? Your client's not selling any property, but yet it still works as a 1031, and you can do all of these things. And this can be 5 or 6 deals over the course of the period of time with this client for you. I'm going to share a couple slides here. So let me share my screen. And Jensen, can you all see the slide that I have up here?
Yeah, looks good.
Perfect, thank you. Let's go ahead and do this. All right, so what are we talking about when we talk about a revenue stream? These are going to be a contract, a lease that a landowner has entered into either for, and we're going to just primarily focus on solar, wind, a little bit of battery storage, but this is the same as any other type of lease payment. It could be a cell phone tower, it could be any other type of encumbrance on the property that they've entered into, and they have a predictable, contractually obligated cash flow that's tied to that property that's going to be paid to the landowner. So that's what we're talking about with the revenue stream. That's what we're talking about with the cash flow. For instance, here we have a couple examples here where you have a landowner who signs an option slash lease agreement, and we'll touch on that very, very briefly here. Why it's called an option slash lease agreement is because if anybody has any experience with traditional energy, oil and gas, mining, water, things like that, most of those leases are paid up front to the landowner. Okay, so if it's a 5-year lease for oil and gas, minerals, or mining, all 5 years are paid at this closing of that lease. At the signing of that lease, it's paid up front. Solar, renewable energy leases, carbon leases, they're all a little bit different. They're paid as options through periods of time. So the first 3 or 4 years of that lease is going to be what's considered an option payment, because the developer is getting their interconnection queue together, their permits, their approvals from cities, counties, everything. They're getting those things together from the time the lease is signed and closed. They have anywhere from 3 to 5 years to get their ducks in a row to get the project started. During that 3 to 5 years is an option period where at any moment they can kind of say, well, this isn't going to work. We're not going to be able to get as much power into the grid as we wanted to for this project. We're not going to be able to go through and actually develop it. Okay. Once construction starts on that project, or your client or any landowner gets close to that moment of construction, that's a very, very critical time for that landowner. It's a very critical time for all of you. At that point, investors who like to buy this cash flow can now confidently look at that cash flow and say, okay, the capital is getting ready to be spent on this project. I'm willing to buy the cash flow for the next 30, 40, 50 years from that landowner. Okay, so that's a critical time. Gotten through the option period, they've gotten permits, this. Now they're getting ready to start construction right here. Once they get close to that point or construction has started, at that point, offers are going to be made. Whether they are coming directly to these landowners in the form of mailers going into their mailboxes, or being represented by a land professional such as you, anybody in this is happening across the country right now. I just talked to an agent yesterday who's going to be representing a former client who actually called them back because they wanted professional representation. That real estate agent's going to list 400 acres of solar panels. It's probably going to be close to anywhere from an $8 to $12 million deal. Fell right in that land professional's lap. And we're going to touch on this in a little bit. It's the easiest deal that individual will ever conduct because it's already essentially done. Buyers essentially do everything on closing costs, due diligence, everything. But that's what we're talking about with an option lease agreement. But a landowner has signed a contract with a solar developer to generate electrons from that property via solar or via wind. Okay. Options are not really predictable because the thing can get pulled out, the project can get pulled out very, very quickly because a lot of capital has not been spent. Once the lease starts and they get into that long-term lease, the money's spent, the cash flow needs to happen for those developer investors to get their money back. The project is going to go for as long as it possibly can. The cash flows become very predictable and like to be purchased by significant investors. We'll go ahead and here's a real example of what does this look like. So if this is a 400, and this is a completely different scenario than the one I just mentioned from yesterday, but that's how many of these deals are going right now. There's trillions of dollars going into renewable energy development, ESG energy projects. This is going to, whether or not it's on your radar now, it definitely will be in the next 12 to 24 months because it's coming. If it's not already on your doorstep, it's coming to your doorstep. But this is what we're talking about when we say predictable revenue streams. 400 acres, it's an example here, 400 acres getting paid $1,050 per acre per year, escalator of 2% every year. This is what the annual payments for this landowner, that's what their contract would look like. Okay. So every year they're getting paid close to $500,000. You start getting further in time with the escalator starts building up. You're getting close to $750,000 over the course of 30 years. You can see there down at the bottom, the total compensation paid to the landowner over the course of the contract is going to be roughly $17 million. They still own the property. It's their property. They're going to get paid $17 million for renting their property out to a solar developer to get paid this amount. We'll stop here for a second, and because some of you are probably thinking, well, why would they ever sell this? Why would they ever sell this cash flow? The same thing as an oil well on their property. That's what most people think, and it's not. It's the opposite of that. This is not a royalty payment. Royalties are the term that's based off of whatever the production is, you get paid a percentage of that. That is a royalty. This is not a royalty. This is a flat rent payment of land. And that's how your clients, and that's how you need to think about it. It is a flat rent payment. It's 400 acres and they're renting it out for $1,000, $1,050 an acre. But it's no different financially, the concept of leasing out 400 acres of dry land wheat for X amount dollars per acre per year and saying, I'll give you a 2% escalator and we're going to do it for 30 years. No farmer or rancher would ever do that for their property because they know the financial metrics of that. But this is what happens when solar and wind leases, the numbers are so much higher that people kind of throw that in the back of their mind and say, well, I don't really care. 2% escalator, look how much money I'm getting paid every year, and I don't have to do anything. I don't have to get up in the morning and go plow the field or, get the cattle, make sure their water's not frozen. I don't have to do anything. I'm getting paid this much on 400 acres. I don't really care. I've won the lottery, and they have. However, you as land professionals, this is where you have a critical role in this whole scenario. There's a 2% escalator on this flat cash payment. We are depending on what lens you want to look through, and this is not a webinar to discuss what the actual inflation rate is or is not. But let's just say it's somewhere between 6 and 10%, just so we don't make anybody mad. Or it's 2023, someone's going to be mad at something. But somewhere between 6 and 10% is how much money is losing value every single year. This money, this flat rent payment, is only increasing 2% per year. So without us having to go down a dissertation of finance, there's a big delta there of whether or not this cash flow is actually increasing in value through time. It's a no-brainer. It's losing value. It is a great cash flow. It's money that this landowner never would have had, but the landowner has an option to make another really, really good financial move right now and take this cash flow and invest it into some other property that is going to churn off more than negative 4% rate of return every year. This is where you step in, understanding things like this and letting them know and knocking on the door saying, hey, did you know that you can actually sell that cash flow and I can help you make more money off of that cash flow and you don't have to sell your property. Just the simple idea that they don't have to sell their farm, that they don't have to sell their ranch, they don't have to sell their property, that without doing anything is going to appreciate over the next 30, 40 years. And it's going to be worth more money even when they take the panels off, even when they take the turbines off. The land is going to be worth more money in 40 years than it is today. So it's going to appreciate in value. It's already a good investment. It's a good land bank. But the cash flow, de-link the two. The cash flow is a completely different story. The cash flow is losing money through time, radically increases the value of that property the moment that production starts, or the moment construction starts on the property. However, to keep making a good financial decision, a huge disclaimer, this is not professional financial advice. This is not professional accounting advice. This is an understanding from energy folks, that's what we do very well, of how these things function for your landowner. They've won the lottery, and they really have. They've won the lottery, and they're getting cash flow from their property of something that they probably never anticipated before. The next good move for them is making that cash flow essentially produce more than negative 4% rate of return. The huge mechanism that allows them to do that is where you step in and you can allow them to do a 1031 exchange. They can take this cash flow, and there's certain mechanisms that you can do, and we can get into more detail on that if people want to ask questions about that. But they can take this cash flow and 1031 exchange it and put themselves into more farmland, DST, commercial property that's likely going to also appreciate in time. They hold something hard, a real asset, but it's also going to turn off more cash than just the cash flow. So just the simple idea of presenting these options to the landowner is already going to make you, they're going to keep your business card just by saying, hey, did you know you can do this? They're going to probably know that at this point, if the project's been producing for 2, 3, 4 years, they've already received letters left and right in the mail of people wanting to buy the cash flow. Now, these letters are no different than anything that you all are used to of sending out letters, people who are trying to buy real estate properties for as cheap as they possibly can. And they send letters out to every address that's out there. This is no different. People are sending letters out to these specific landowners trying to buy their cash flow. You have a different value proposition than any letter that comes in the mail, because you can take this cash flow and you can put it into a competitive marketplace, and you can see what the market is willing to spend on that specific cash flow. So there's a huge role for you to play in this process. Most realtors that I talk with say, well, that's for somebody else. That's an energy deal. I've never done an energy deal. That is for someone else. And most of the reasons they say that is they do not understand this is not something that you need a PhD in finance to understand. This is not something that you need to have an engineering background or a professional landman background to understand. This is your profession. This is what you do every day. These types of transactions, the process that goes through it as far as getting offers in, making sure you have the correct amount of offers in before you make a decision for you and your client. That's what you do every day. That is your profession. These deals need to be incorporated into your business model one way, shape, or form. Let's go back to a couple of the points that we had here. Usually one of the first questions once land professionals like yourselves hear about this is, how does a commission work? How do you get paid on that deal? And Jensen, I didn't mean, was that one of the questions?
Go ahead. We had a couple questions coming in the chat and the Q&As if you wanted to look at those while we're here.
We'll touch on the commissions, and then we'll go to the questions in the chat. So,
great.
Okay, we are doing pretty decent on time for what I want to say to you all. The commissions, these are real estate deals. And we are not in a position to tell you what your commissions should be. We don't touch the commissions. We don't get paid commissions. We don't touch your deal. The commissions you get paid is based off of whatever agreement you have with that landowner. So let's say I'm this landowner, Jensen is my agent, and I've got 400 acres of land here. I'm going to sign, Jensen's going to send me a listing agreement. Now, I already told him very clearly, I don't want to sell my property. I know you told me you're a realtor. Don't even try to convince me to sell my property, because I already told you once, I'm not going to sell it. I don't know how many people have had that conversation, but I'm guessing it's happening quite a bit. Great. Jensen says to me, great, I don't want you to sell your property, Craig, because it's too valuable to sell right now. There's a better deal for you. So I'm going to say, okay, what is that? Sends me a listing agreement. So I'm going to help you sell the cash flow. You're going to think about that. Okay, wait a minute. I don't have to sell any property, and I can sell this cash flow. How do you get paid, Jensen? And Jensen's going to tell me, well, we're going to put this out on the market. Let's say I agree to, and I don't care, we're not going to advise on what your commission should be, but let's say I say, Jensen says this is a unique deal. I'm really going to help you out here. It's a tough market. I'm going to go to work hard for you. I need 7% on the commission. Well, do I have to sell if you bring me an offer? No, it's no different than anything else. I can say no to every offer. I'm the landowner here. Say to Jensen, and I look at it and say, okay, well, absolutely. If you can do what you say you can do, I'll give you 7%. Let's see what we can do here. Because at 7%, I'm still saving an enormous amount of money over time. So take it to the market. I go ahead and sell this, and we get offers in, and let's say a month later, 30 days later after listing it, Jensen brings me 5 or 6 different offers, and I decide to go ahead and accept an offer for, let's say, $8.5 million cash. Someone's going to buy all this cash flow. They're going to pay me $8.5 million cash. I'm going to look at that and say, well, Jensen, I'm going to make $17 million over the course of this. Why would I take $8.5 million? Jensen's going to explain to me, well, one big reason I'm not actually getting paid $17 million. That's ordinary income. I'm now making $420,000 of ordinary income every year. I'm raking and I'm paying a massive ordinary income tax. So there goes 30, 35, maybe 40% right off of the top. I'm not getting paid 17%. 30% of it's already gone to taxes. Then Jensen's going to tell me, well, inflation's also eating it alive. So your payment clear out in time, not worth anything close to what you think it is today. So when someone comes to you and says, I'll give you $8.5 million of cash right now, and Jensen says, we're going to go and we're going to buy a property that's going to make you 15% every single year because we're going to farmland, we're doing this, we're going to do that, and you don't have to pay taxes on it, I'm going to say that's a really, really good opportunity. And I get to keep my property? Yes. So when I accept that $8.5 million offer, Jensen gets paid his commission, whatever that is. There is no two-sided commission on these energy deals and on Landgate. These are direct deals that you sell to the buyers, that you sell to hedge fund backed management groups, that you're selling directly to PE groups, private equity groups, VC groups, energy companies. You're doing the deal directly with them. There is no middleman. So it's your commission. So Jensen's going to get paid 7% on that $8.5 million deal. But he's not done, because I've also told him, okay, well, great, I've got this $8.5 million 1031. I want to do this again. I thought I wanted some farmland, and I do want farmland. But Jensen, I want you to find me some farmland that people just think is farmland. I want you to go find me a farm that in 5 years we have more solar farm on it, and I'll do it again and do it again and do it again. That's what I want Jensen to do, because he's a land professional working for me. So then Jensen gets paid on the 1031 acquisition that I buy. And then he helps me list that property for a solar lease. And anytime I get paid on that lease, Jensen's going to get paid for that. Anytime your client, anytime the landowner gets paid from the offers that you bring them, you get paid your commission. So Jensen, you want to go ahead and if you have anything more to add that, please do, Jensen. If not, if you want to jump into the chat, go ahead, or the Q&A.
Yeah, I would say like we can keep talking about this, and we'll share my contact info as well, and also a recording after this. But the cash flows, it might sound like a complex concept, but it's happening now. People are using Landgate to connect with those people and find those cash flow buyers or the developers to start the whole process. And we've really found that it's this beautiful, virtuous cycle. And as long as y'all keep bringing these deals to market, like these landowners and owners will want to continue to work with you. There were a couple specifics on questions in the Q&A, Craig, if you want to look at the acre deals. There's one from Bill about the 20 to 30 acre cost. And then the lease rate from George.
So let's go to the top. I'll start at the top one. And can you see my screen here, my module that I pulled up, Jensen? Okay. We'll start with Bill's question here. So are you estimating on that 400 acre deal, $20,000 to $30,000 per acre, correct? Those are the types of numbers that we're talking about. But keep in mind, Bill, you're not selling the dirt. That is what the lease is worth. So Jensen comes to me and says, I can sell your lease. That's outside. Remember, I have to decouple the asset. I have to decouple the asset. There's the dirt. Don't even talk to me about selling this dirt, because I'm not going to do it. It's been in the family for 100 years. I want my kids to have it, and I want their grandkids to have it. Don't talk to me about selling this dirt. So if you come to me and say $20,000 to $30,000 per acre, I automatically, as a landowner, start thinking, well, he's wanting to sell my property. He's wanting to sell my property. No, $20,000, $30,000 per acre. In some cases, a lot more, depending on where you're at and depending on the specific contract that the landowner signed. It can be far higher than that. But that is what the lease cash flow is worth. I still, as the landowner, I'm going to own my property after this transaction. In 30, 40 years, when the panels come down, when the wind turbines come down, when the cell phone tower comes down, it's still my property, free and clear. And here's a question that often gets asked by the landowner. So you're going to get asked this question. What happens when the lease expires? What happens when this lease is no longer, this developer no longer has to pay to encumber the property? As soon as the lease expires, the purchase agreement you have also expires. You're only selling the cash flow from that particular lease. You're not selling the rights. This is a huge distinction. You are not selling the solar rights. You're not selling the wind rights. You're selling lease cash flow. And that's a very big distinction that some people get hung up on. Let's go.
Then Craig, the lease rate you show on Landgate, is that one of the fields? Is that a field that is in production right now?
The lease rate you show on Landgate.
So I think that might have been the
Oh,
table
okay.
that's showing the.
So I think there's two things there. There's a lease rate on Landgate. And if we minimize this here really quickly, and we're looking at a map here. This is a screen capture from Landgate, but you can see all of these parcels, and you can see several parcels here that have solar farms on them. Okay. What Landgate does, it's very unique. If for the folks that are on the call that don't know anything about us and have never heard of Landgate, what we do that's interesting and special is I can click on the neighboring parcel. I can click on any parcel in the United States. I can click on that, and it's going to give me a calculated value of what we anticipate the solar lease to be on that property. So there is no lease in place at all on these things here. There's leases in place here where me as a land professional, I can go sell this cash flow. But Landgate gives me the data and the analytics to understand if I know who this landowner is, I can now help guide them when they start receiving offers for solar options and leases. I can help guide them. Well, this is essentially what the metrics are of what you should be accepting for a solar lease. Now, obviously, use that as a guide, but you use a competitive marketplace, get as many offers as possible because that's how you get the best offer. That's that's what you guys do for a living. You guys know that better than I do. But where there is a producing solar farm, we will flip the calculation to understand what is the production on that farm, what is the production on the wind turbine, and we'll run a calculation of what we're estimating the cash flow to be, what the sale of the cash flow to be for those particular parcels. So I don't know if that touches on it, but for those of you who might have a client who is receiving offers, they're not in the lease yet, but they're receiving offers, you need to understand that and we have plenty of resources on Landgate. Jensen's going to put his contact information out there as well. We have a huge resource center. We have question and answers on solar leasing, which we have other webinars on, but there's a lot of things that a lot of knobs and needles you can kind of twist and turn on those to make sure that you're getting the right deal for your client. So we provide a resource for that as well. But the lease rate might be what they're talking about as $1 per acre. In other energy terms, the lease rate would be the bonus, the payment per acre, but then also a royalty component. There is no royalty component to solar. There's a bit of a royalty component to a lot of wind, but we're not going to touch on that. That's a different topic. You guys can come back for another webinar on those. And then Bill, again, go ahead, Jensen.
Oh, then I was going to say too, in that chart, just to make sure everybody's clear, that chart they were showing a 2% escalator. This is what the developer will be offering each year to increase your payment. So this isn't a part of the per acre per year value, but a price that's increasing, similar to like compounding interest. So
correct. Yeah. So almost all of these renewable energy leases has some sort of escalator that ranges anywhere from 1% to 2%. I've seen a little bit higher. Some of those escalators are based on inflation. So there's a lot of different variables. Again, back to my previous point, there's a lot of variables to turn when doing those lease negotiations. And for those of you who are signed up with Landgate, you understand that you have us as a resource when you're doing these deals. You have questions like things like that. You're picking up the phone, you're calling us so that you're comfortable before you're out there talking to your clients. But I know there's another question here. Craig, when you began this case study, you said 8 to 12 million on a 400-acre deal. How does that statement correlate with the model we are now viewing? So we're looking at this now. Again, this is 400 acres. on 1,000, the landowner's getting paid 1,050. This is what they're getting. That's their starting payment at year one. It's $1,050 per acre. Total, there's their annual total payment. And then there is the cumulative amount down here at the bottom right. How buyers calculate what they want to offer on these cash flows, it's a simple discounted cash flow analysis. Depending on the cost of capital, depending on how expensive their money is that they're using to buy this stuff, they can be more competitive or less competitive. And depending on what part of the country, what type of deal, the size of the deal, certain buyers can be more competitive than others. For a certain deal, other buyers can be more competitive than others on other deals. And that's why it's really important. We try not to say, this is what you can expect to get from your client, and you shouldn't say that. This is a very, very new type of market, and it's extraordinarily competitive. It's very, very hard to find these types of deals to buy from the buyer's perspective. So when you get one and you put it onto a marketplace, it's like throwing a piece of fish bait into a pond of fish who haven't eaten for a month. They all want a piece of it. They all want that piece. Okay. So that's what the marketplace does. As soon as I'm the landowner, I signed a listing agreement with Jensen. Jensen put it up on Landgate for me. His phone's going to start ringing right away with buyers asking questions. Can I see the last pay statement? Can I see the lease agreement so that buyer can go ahead and run their discounted cash flow analysis? Typically, for those from the financial side of the world, they're going to discount the overall value. So let's say they've raised capital and they have to pay, interest rates have changed. Let's say they have to pay 4% annually on the capital that they've raised. Well, they're going to go ahead and they'll discount now that instead of having to pay 3 to 3.5%, now they got to pay 4.5%. They have to discount this number more. So instead of buying it for $12 million, which they would have done 18 months ago when interest rates were really low, well, now they might only be able to buy it for 9.5 million, 10 million, whatever it is, once you find out what the competitive offers are going to be, because their cost of capital goes up. So this is not a goalpost that's stuck in the sand. It's no different than the deals you're doing. I mean, land values, housing values, commercial values are constantly doing this. Same thing here. The big key with this that's different than everything else is there's, I'd say, 15 to 30 highly motivated and very well-funded groups that are buying these. And what I've seen, some big mistakes on the land professional side and the landowner side, is that these folks think they're negotiating with who the top bidder is, and they only talk to one or two people, because those one or two people have driven to their house, bought them a steak dinner, became best friends with them. Hey, just don't talk to anybody else. I promise I'll give you the best deal. And it's a huge mistake to do, right? It's a very big mistake because this is an open marketplace. People want to buy these, people will be competitive for them. And you, as the land professional, are the ones that are really the catalyst for it, bringing these deals to the market. Because when Jensen comes and knocks on my door, I'm the landowner and I get a letter every week, somebody wanting to buy my cash flow. It's the same model that happened in the mineral space. People with very valuable minerals, every day they're getting a letter. They throw them in the trash after a while. I'm done looking at them. Same thing's happening on the surface landowner side with these. I'm done looking at these letters. I don't care. I'm not interested, because I know that no one's out there to help me. I don't have a fiduciary. I'm out there on my own. I don't really know. I just know I'm getting paid a lot of money and I don't really understand what I should do with it. Means I'm just going to sit back because I'd rather just lose a little bit of money than make a really bad deal. That's where I'm thinking as the landowner, until Jensen comes and knocks on my door, says, hey, I'm a land professional. Can I talk with you for 5 minutes? Well, I'm not going to sell my property. You told me you're a realtor. I don't want to sell my property. I'm going to slam the door in your face too. But Jensen told me he's a land professional. Jensen told me that, hey, I want to talk to you about the options that you have. You don't have to do anything, but I want you to be aware that you have you've won the lottery, but you need to make sure you do the right thing with that lottery. And I'm just going to show you and explain to you some options you have. If you have any questions, call me back. That's how Jensen got into my kitchen and sat down at the table with me. Because he didn't ask me to sell anything. He gave me information that helped me understand what do I actually have here. Yeah, I know I'm rich now. I'm getting paid $420,000 a year on ground that I was leasing out for $200-300 an acre, and I was having to it was not even close to that, and I don't have to do anything. I'm rich now, but now I'm nervous about anybody wanting to talk to me. So Jensen's earned my trust. He's given me some information, and if I'm smart as the landowner, and Jensen's good at his job, he's going to help me make the best financial decision that I've ever made in my life. Not even just for me, but for Jensen. Like I said, these are 5 or 6 deals over the course of a period of time. And I said we were going to come back to it. What do you have to do as the realtor to close the deal? Jensen's job as the realtor was to simply bring me to the market, bring my opportunity as a landowner to the market. His job is essentially done. The only thing he has to do next is bring offers to his client. He can call us, he can talk to us. What is this? What does this mean? So he's educated before he comes and talks to the landowner about what's going on. But after that, his job is done. All of the closings are done by the buyer. Title due diligence done by the buyer. Closing costs done by the buyer. Everything is finished. His next step is finding me another property to buy and another commission for him.
Sweet. So Bill, hope that answers your question there. We had a couple more in the chat. Sonia, I
Okay.
think we've answered your question, but let us know if we didn't get to it. And then Susan, we are seeing, I would say like an average of about 30. We have seen shorter and we have also seen longer ones. I've saw up to a 40-year one. I've seen as low as 10 or 20, but it just ranges on the resource, the company, the land, where it's at. And then Ted, with the present values when we're selling the cash flows, that would be that discounted rate that these investment groups, pension funds, private equity groups are offering at the time of like when they would want to buy. And then Greg after this will send out the presentation as well.
Yeah, and we'll get that out. And real quick to Ted's question, again, it depends on the interest rates and the cost of the capital of what PV value they are going to run on that model. This time last year, I mean, there was a couple deals, crazy deals. I saw stuff going for like 4.5, between 4.5, 5% discount rate, which is unheard of. Absolutely unheard of. For those of you in the commercial space, if you were to sell cash flow from a producing medical facility or rental property or something like that, most investors are going to be sitting between a present value of 8 to 12% somewhere. That's typically what you're buying a cash flowing annuity for. Less than half of that 12 to 18 months ago. Here, interest rates have gone up. So currently, I mean, if you're sitting in the range of a PV 7 to 8, I think you're sitting still really well, because keep in mind the component of the 1031. And the reason why you can do the 1031, these are 35-year plus 1-day assets in most cases. And even if you're not, there's some very clever things that some of the buyers will do to help your client qualify for the 1031. So that's something to be aware of. When you have these deals, you need to be aware that when you create your listing, and we'll help you out with that, walk you through that, that when you're doing all of these things, that you want offers that would help your client qualify for the 1031. And then later on, if a lot of these folks do end up wanting to try to buy the property, the dirt itself, that's another thing for you in negotiations to say, okay, well, now this is what you'll buy the cash flow for. What would you buy everything for? And you're just, again, continuing to serve the needs of your client. But it is again, I want to make sure that you guys don't think that I'm speaking hyperbolic about these types of deals. I don't know if anyone is going to be, hopefully all of you are going to be attending the RLI conference in Denver I think it's a month or two. Last year, I hosted a panel up there with 4 energy executives and Casey Mock from Mock Ranches. We talked about, here are the deals that are going to happen over the course of 2022. These energy executives are saying, we want to buy these cash flows. We like working with realtors. Casey Mock was up there saying, if you are a realtor, you need to be paying attention to this. Said that 10, 11 months ago. This year, we're going to be having some folks up on that panel who did just that, who were sitting in the room and said, I know somebody who has a bunch of wind turbines. I know somebody who has a bunch of solar panels. They'll never sell their property. And that's fine. They didn't have to, but these were realtors that went out and talked to these folks. And these are realtors that closed 15, 20, $30 million deals. They essentially, the only thing they had to do was get that landowner to sign a listing agreement to sell the cash flow and get it to the market. Their job was done. I'm not speaking hyperbolically when I say these are the easiest deals that you will ever do. And they're very rewarding, and there's a pathway to keep working with that landowner. The people that have grabbed the bull by the horns and ran with it are doing very, very well. Most folks that I talk to say, well, those are deals for somebody else. And that's fine. But now you all have an understanding of what we're talking about with these cash flows and how you can incorporate them into your business. So keep that in mind that, and I'm going to touch on Mike's question here really quick, but when you are talking with a landowner and they do not have a lease in place, but they have a pathway to potentially getting a lease in place, you need to have these concepts in the back of your head. But yeah, you're probably not going to make much money at all during the option period. If Jensen brought this opportunity to me 5 years ago, he didn't get paid much during the option period because I didn't get paid much as a landowner during the option period. But Jensen knew once construction started, Jensen also won the lottery. I really did, but Jensen also won the lottery, right? So as you have clients that have good potential solar sites, good potential wind sites, battery storage sites, EV charging sites, you get them in the lease. Once you get them in the lease, this is the next goal. Get construction started on the project, sell the cash flow, and 1031 it and keep doing deals. Once people start getting that, is that this is not a one-time deal. These are not one-time, Jensen works with me one time and we're done. Nope, Jensen is a land professional. He helped me understand what it is that I have, helped me sell it. Now I'm making even more money than I was before. I still own my property, and I own other real estate property that's earning way more than me just sitting on my cash flow. Jensen is a hero to me. And anybody that I talk to that needs real estate assistance, guess who I'm going to send them to? Well, I may not. He's made me so much money. Maybe I don't tell anybody about him because I want to keep him to myself. And then, yes, we'll put this presentation linked with the recording so that you guys can see it. And then, Mike, should a landowner be concerned about confidentiality clauses in many leases? A lot of the solar and wind leases, at least recently, do have confidentiality clauses in them. As far as selling the cash flow, you shouldn't have to worry about that. What developers are really worried about is on the really early phases of those leases. So let's say me and Jensen both own 400 acres. I owned my 400 acres and Jensen owned his 400 acres. And there's a big company trying to lease up ground in that area. The confidentiality component of that lease is made for mostly the really early parts of that, where Jensen's negotiating on behalf of his family, I'm negotiating on behalf of my family, and the company doesn't want to have to be bidding against each other and the landowners to be going and telling each other, well, Jensen got this, and I'm going to ask for this, and then it's just a snowball's effect of things like that. So that's primarily where you'll see that confidentiality agreement. Once the project is moving forward, and once that developer has the capital and they've devoted the capital, excavators are rolling, foundations are getting built for the wind turbines, solar panels are getting put up. At that point, the developer probably doesn't care too much because everybody knows what everybody else is getting paid from a lease bonus perspective. And I think
that's a great answer. Yeah. And then also, Kimberly, I've sent you an email, so you should have our info there. Can you explain the 35 and 1 day rule when you're selling cash flows?
So that's what
1031s.
Yeah, real quickly. So the 35-year and 1 day, that's what allows the cash flow to be a 1031 if you're not selling any real estate, if you're not selling a hard asset. So typically what you'd look at, so let's say this lease here, we have a 30-year primary term. Okay, so maybe I went 3 or 4 years construction option period, and then 30 years is what they say, we're going to be here for 30 years on your property. But then I also want an option to be here for possibly another 20 years. So 2 10-year options. Now they don't have to. And to be honest, those option periods don't mean a whole lot because at any moment, and this is something that's very critical, another reason of why a landowner should sell these, at any moment during any period of time during this lease, that developer can stop the lease. And it happens regularly across the United States. Wind turbines come down far earlier than when the primary lease term was laid out. Solar farms, something catastrophic happens, the financial incentives aren't there to rebuild the solar farm. It's a huge risk to that landowner because I've been banking, I'm banking on this every year. I took loans out on this stuff. Well, it's not guaranteed. Even the primary term is not guaranteed. The option terms are definitely not guaranteed. Yeah, that's something to be very conscientious of. This cash flow absolutely needs to be diversified 100% because it's very, very risky that it could be going away. Did I cover that question, Jensen? I went on a bit of a tangent there.
Yeah, I think you're good. And
Okay.
and Kyle, to your point, I think that's a really good summary. All of this example is somebody who has entered into a solar or a wind lease. They are doing the due diligence period for those few initial years. After, let's say it's 5 years, there's actually like construction equipment going on the land. And then that would start this whole process. When somebody's receiving that cash flow is when I, as a real estate agent, would approach them about selling the cash flows once it's producing.
So really quick, because we're just about out of time here. I'm going to show you for the folks who are not familiar with Landgate and the tools that we have. Let's say I'm a Colorado realtor and I sat through this webinar, got me thinking, it's like, hey, I live around a whole bunch of wind turbines, and I know a lot of those landowners. I know, heck, I know a family that's got 30 wind turbines on them right now. They're very, very active. They're very good business folks. They would understand this right away. They just don't know they have the option. I'm going to go talk to them, but I don't want to just talk to them. I want to talk to everybody. I want to show you very quickly how easy it is in Landgate to find landowners, every landowner with an active wind turbine, an active solar farm, a queued solar farm, whatever it is in your area, find them, download their information, create custom reports for them. I'm going to show you that very quickly, how easy this is. So this is our module. This is our Power Realty module. I'm logged in as myself. I'm going to create a portfolio here where I can store all of the parcels that have wind turbines on them in Colorado. So I'm going to say wind turbine in Colorado. Okay. All I have to do is come down to my parcel search area, and I'm going to go to these predefined searches, and I'm going to find all producing wind farms. So let's see here, all producing farm parcels, every parcel that has a wind turbine on it in the state of Colorado. Okay. That's all I need to do. And we have plenty of filters here to find areas next to substations, high value solar, wind, battery storage, all of that. We'll do that in a different webinar, but I want to show you all this very quickly. Right now, it's scraping through the millions of parcels in the state of Colorado that are the exact parcels that I want to talk to. It's all of these guys with wind turbines. And again, I can do this for solar farms or wind turbines, any of those types of things. So it found 1,168 parcels. That happened in the course of time that you heard me talking there. So less than 30 seconds. I'm going to add all of those to a portfolio. So in the course of 30 seconds, I identified every parcel in the state of Colorado that has a wind turbine on it. And let's do this. It added it to the turn. There we go. This one. And just so you know what you're looking at, I can store as large or as small portfolios here that I wish. But But now that I've identified all of these parcels that have wind turbines on them, what I can do is I can export the ownership information. I can export their phone numbers, email addresses, and even better, we have a new product, which we'll be talking about in another webinar called Power Marketing. I can send a customized letter. I can upload my own letter into Landgate with my image, my biography, everything. And I can, with a push of a button, I can send this hard mailer. With a push of a button, I can send this hard mailer and deliver it to every single one of these folks with whatever message I'd like. It does the entire workflow, the entire job of not what you do is that's not what you do is those are administrative things. Those eat up your time. Your land professionals, your time, your valuable time shouldn't be making letters and doing this or looking up data. We do all of that for you very quickly. But I can do this across the state of Colorado. And in 5 minutes, I can have my mailers going out to specifically who I want. And my mailer is different than everybody else's because I'm not trying to buy something from them. I'm providing them information. Here's what you can do. Here's what your cash flow means. Did you know you can do this? Did you know your cash flow is losing money and I can help you make a heck of a lot more? I can do that in an entire state within a few minutes. So I spend my time doing what I should be doing, what I'm really good at. And that's building the relationships with, let's see here, the coach's family. That's what I should be spending my time with. They pick up the phone. I'm going to do everything I can. Well, here's what I do. I'm not trying to get you to sell your property. I don't think you should. That's where your time should be spent, in my opinion. Not to tell people what they should or shouldn't be doing. But that's what makes you land professionals, is you can talk to these folks about any questions they might have. And when they do decide to sell that cash flow and they understand the implications to it, they're going to pick up the phone and call you. But that's how easy it is using these Landgate tools. And we're going to be cleaning this up a lot. If you've never seen these dashboards and things, they might be a little bit overwhelming. Right now, we're in the process cleaning these up, making them very, very user-friendly, and make it so you can churn through. You saw how I did it there. Jensen's online if you guys want to learn more about how you can utilize this software, this technology to kind of take the concepts we've been talking about and apply them immediately. Give Jensen a call. He's very, very good at what he does. But yeah, that's kind of all I had to show, and I don't want to go any longer here. So if there's any more Q&A or chats, Jensen, feel free to jump in on those.
Yeah, and then Kimberly asked a question. We're about 8 years old right now, and we've been, I would say, expanding quite rapidly. There's been a ton of, need from these investment groups, solar, wind, carbon, energy developers to find more land, especially with the new trend and like environmental, social, like governance, like standards that are coming about. These companies need to hit those goals, and doing it through Landgate is one of the easiest tools to do that. So there's a lot we've gone over, and I would just say, like, talk to any of your landowners, any of your past clients, and pull these reports. Tell them what you think their land is worth. Talk to them about just getting it posted for a lease. You can always do a sale as well, but we found that leases are the most popular these days. Leases for any renewable energy or even carbon as well. Getting them just posted starts this whole virtuous cycle, and I can help anybody with that.
Very good, Jensen. And real quick to Kyle's question, you're absolutely right. That coach's family that we just found in a few seconds on Landgate, that family is likely already receiving letters. Now, that's why I mentioned it earlier. The value proposition for a land professional reaching out and a developer reaching out, two completely different value propositions. Every letter they're receiving now, it's people trying to get something from them. They're trying to buy either that ranch, they're trying to buy the property, they're trying to buy the cash flow, they're trying to get something from them. That, if I'm Mr. Coaches or Mrs. Coaches, whoever it is, their interests are not aligned with mine. When Jensen sends me a letter that says, hey, your land is very valuable. I want to help you understand what you have there, Craig. I really want you to understand this is what your cash flow is. Here's some implications. Here are some options that you have. Give me a call back if you have any questions. Well, guess what? That's completely different from me, because I have a stack of people over here trying to convince me that they are giving me the very best offer. And I'm getting offers all over the place. So I know they're all lying to me. I have someone now who's my fiduciary. They're in my boat, they're in my camp. And you know what? Before Jensen sent me that letter, I'm done. I'm not going to go into the market. I'm a rancher, I'm a farmer, this is not my profession as energy. They know commodities. I'm farmer rancher. I know commodities very well, but I don't know this one. I need someone to explain this to me and help me through the process, because once it's explained to me, then I do understand it. Oh, geez, this cash flow is losing money. Can you help me make more money, Jensen? Jensen's letter's completely different. Here are your options. Here are your options, landowner. I'm here to work with you. And you know what? If I can't make you any money, I don't make a penny. That's a very different proposition than I'm your best friend. I'm willing to pay you $8 million today. Sign on the line. You got a week, or I'm never talking to you again. That is the difference between the letters they're receiving and the messaging coming from you, because those are the letters they're receiving. So anyway, we are at the top of the hour. Again, thank you all for joining. Had a very good attendance. Again, this has been recorded. We will put the slides up there. Sorry, we didn't get through all of them. We do teach a course through RLI that we go in very, very in-depth on all of these energy topics. So keep your eyes and ears open for that. But this will be put out in the resource center. You'll also all receive an email with all of these recordings. So thanks for attending, and we'll have one in what, 2 weeks, Jensen? Another one?
Yep. Yeah, we're doing these every 2 weeks, so you can keep registering where you are, where you were earlier in the Landgate Resource Center, or you can also book up time with me, and I'll help out with anything y'all need.